I remember the day she came. It was a hot afternoon, and the sun was sitting right on top of our heads like it had no plan to move. I was sitting outside my room, fanning myself with a wrapper, when I saw her dragging 2 small bags through the gate. She was not like the kind of tenants that make noise or talk too much. She just walked in quietly, wearing a long gown and a scarf that covered half of her face. "Good afternoon, Ma." She greeted me softly, almost like a whisper. "Afternoon, my daughter," I replied. "You are the new tenant?" She nodded and smiled small. "Yes, Ma. The agent said I should take room 4. I looked at her again. Her eyes looked tired, like somebody that had cried too much or carried too many worries. But she was neat. Even her slippers looked clean. I liked that. I don't like dirty people in my compound. I showed her where to fetch water, where to throw dustbin, and told her the rules. No noise, no fighting, and no bringing men to sleep overnight. She just kept saying, "Yes, Ma, thank you, Ma," like a well-trained child. For the first few days, you wouldn't even know she lived there. No visitors, no loud music, no smell of stew coming from her window. Sometimes I saw her sweeping the corridor early in the morning, and by the time the rest of us came out, she was already inside. She minded her business well. I even told my friend Aisha, "That new tenant is a peaceful woman. I like her." But after 1 week, strange things started happening. The first night I heard it, I thought it was from the next compound. It was like someone was crying softly, like a baby that didn't want to wake the mother. I got up and listened. It was coming from her room, room 4. The next night, it happened again. This time, it was louder. The cry started small, then turned to quiet sobs, then stopped suddenly, like she covered her mouth. I wanted to knock on her door, but I changed my mind. Maybe she was praying, or maybe she lost somebody. I didn't want to poke my nose into what I didn't understand. By the 3rd night, the whole compound had heard it. Even Chuka, the carpenter, asked me, "Mama Kemi, wetin dey worry that new woman? She dey cry every night like say somebody die." I told him to mind his business. But deep down, I too was worried. Every night I waited for the sound. It always came. Sometimes it was a soft wail, sometimes just silence after heavy breathing. I began to feel pity for her. A woman crying every night is not ordinary. Maybe her heart is carrying something too heavy for her mouth to say. One morning, I decided to check on her. I knocked on her door gently. "Nosy, my daughter, are you all right?" There was a long silence, then her voice came out, weak and shaky. "Yes, Ma, I'm fine, thank you." But I knew she was lying. A woman that cries every night cannot be fine. Something was wrong with that woman in room 4, and I could feel it deep in my bones. Whatever it was only just beginning. Days turned to weeks, and the crying did not stop. Every night, just after midnight, the sound would come again, soft at first, then stronger, like someone trying to hold pain inside her chest. Sometimes it lasted 10 minutes, sometimes a whole hour. The compound people started talking. Isha, the nurse that lived in room 2, was the first to complain. She came to my window one morning, her face squeezed. "Mama Kemi, I no fit sleep again. That woman dey cry every night. My spirit no rest." I told her, maybe she's passing through something. Let's give her time. But Aisha hissed, "Abeg, me I know like wahala. This one no be normal cryo. Sometimes I dey hear her talking like she dey quarrel with person inside the room, but when I pass there in the morning, everywhere dey quiet." That made me think, talking to who? She lived alone. Later that evening, Chuka stopped by to fix the broken tap, and he too asked me, "Mama, are you sure say that woman day all right? I see her by the well last night. She stand there barefoot, just looking inside the water like she day talk to Am." He shocked me. I waved it off at first, but that picture refused to leave my mind. A woman staring into a well at midnight. It sounded strange, but I didn't want to believe anything bad. The next night, the crying started again, louder this time. I couldn't sleep. I sat up on my bed, listening. I wanted to knock on her door, but something held me back. Fear. What if she was not well in the head? What if she was possessed? The thought made my body cold. By morning, some tenants gathered near the corridor, gossiping. "She's hiding something," one said. "I heard she killed her husband." Another one added, "Maybe she lost her baby." I shouted at them to stop talking nonsense, but truth be told, I too was beginning to wonder who she really was. That evening, I saw her sitting on the small bench outside her room. Her scarf had slipped a little, and I saw her eyes, red, swollen, empty. I went close to her. "Ngozi, my daughter, are you okay?" She smiled faintly. "Yes, Ma, I'm fine. I just miss home." "Where's home?" I asked. She looked away. "Far. Too far." Then she stood up and entered her room quietly, closing the door like she was shutting out the world. That night, the crying didn't come from her room. The whole place was silent. I was almost relieved until around 2 a.m. when I heard a sound that made my heart jump. It wasn't crying this time. It was a crash, like something heavy had fallen. Then silence again. I waited for a few seconds, then another sound. A soft thud, then a whisper, faint but clear, like a child's voice saying, "Mama." I froze where I sat. My hands began to shake. I looked toward her door, and for the first time since she moved in, I was truly afraid. Something was happening inside room 4. That morning, I woke up with my heart still beating fast. I couldn't stop thinking about what I heard in the night, that small voice that sounded like a child. I told myself maybe it was my dream, maybe I was just hearing things. But when I went out to sweep the corridor, I saw something that made my broom freeze in my hand. In front of Ngozi's door, there was a small baby sock. Just one. Clean, but old and faded. I knew it wasn't there the night before. I bent down and picked it up. It had a small blue teddy bear drawn on it. My body turned cold. I looked around. Nobody was outside. The sun was not even up yet. I dropped the sock carefully by her door and continued sweeping, pretending like I didn't see anything. But my mind refused to rest. Later that day, Aisha came running to me. "Mama Kemi, come and see her," she shouted. "That woman never come out since yesterday." Her door never opened once. I followed her quickly. We knocked and knocked. "Ngozi, my daughter, are you all right?" No answer. Chuka joined us. He knocked harder. Nothing. I felt fear crawling up my chest. I told Chuka, "Break the lock." He hesitated. "Mama, what if she no want us to enter?" "Break it!" I said sharply. He used his hammer. The padlock broke with one strong hit. We pushed the door open slowly, and what we saw inside made everyone freeze. Ngozi was sitting on the floor in the middle of the room. Her head was bent, her arms wrapped around something. The curtain was half drawn, and the room smelled like dust and old perfume. "Ngozi?" I called softly. She didn't answer. When I went closer, I saw she was holding a small baby blanket. She was rocking it gently like she was holding a real baby. Tears were running down her face. Chuka whispered, "Mama, there's no baby." She looked up suddenly, her eyes wide and lost. "Please," she said in a shaking voice, "keep your voice down. He's sleeping." We all froze. My mouth went dry. She looked down at the empty blanket again. "He hates noise," she said, smiling faintly. "If I cry too much, he wakes up and gets angry." Aisha slowly stepped back toward the door, whispering, "Jesus." I didn't move. I just stood there, my heart breaking and afraid at the same time. I could see her pain clearly now. It wasn't just sadness. It was madness born from sorrow too deep for one heart to carry. I knelt beside her and touched her shoulder. "Ngozi, my daughter, where is your baby?" She looked at me blankly. "He's right here, Mama. Don't you see him?" She smiled again, then looked down at the blanket like she was seeing something only her eyes could see. That was the moment I knew. The woman crying every night was not crying for something she lost. She was crying for something she still believed was with her. We managed to help her stand up that morning. Her hands were still holding the empty blanket tight, like if she let go, the world would scatter. I told Chuka and Aisha to wait outside while I tried to talk to her alone. The room felt cold even though the sun was already shining. There was a small picture frame on the table, a man, a baby, and Ngozi smiling, looking happy. I looked at the photo, then looked at her. She was not the same woman in that picture. "Ngozi," I said softly. "Who are they?" She followed my eyes to the picture, and her lips trembled. For a while she didn't speak. Then her voice came out weak, like something breaking slowly. "My husband and my son." She sat down on the edge of the bed, eyes far away. "We lived in Port Harcourt," she said. "My husband was a mechanic. We didn't have much, but we were happy. My baby's name was Chibuike." Her hand tightened around the blanket. "One night, there was a fire. The whole building caught flames before anyone could escape. I was outside fetching water when it started. I ran back inside, shouting their names. I tried to save them, but..." Her voice broke. I couldn't. She covered her face and began to shake. I heard my baby crying inside the smoke. I heard him calling Mama, but the fire was too much. I fainted before they brought me out. When I woke up, both of them were gone. I didn't know when tears started falling from my eyes. She continued talking, her words trembling. They took me to the hospital. I stayed there for many months. The doctors said I lost my mind. They gave me medicine. I stopped talking. I stopped living. She looked at me then, her eyes red and wet. When I came out, I thought if I moved somewhere new, the pain would leave me. But it followed me here. Every night I hear him crying. Sometimes I see him in my dreams. He crawls to me and says, "Mama, don't leave me again." She began to cry again, this time quietly. I held her hand. "Ngozi, my daughter, you didn't leave him. It was not your fault." She shook her head. "It was my fault. I should have been inside. He was just 1 year old." I wanted to say more, but my throat was heavy. I told Aisha to call someone, maybe a doctor or pastor, but Ngozi suddenly stood up, clutching the blanket. "Don't take him away from me." "Right," she said, backing away. "He's all I have." Chuka tried to calm her, but she started shouting, crying, calling her baby's name over and over until her voice cracked. That was how we ended up calling an ambulance. They came and carried her gently, still holding the blanket, whispering Chibuike as they led her away. As the car drove off, the compound became quiet again. Too quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like sadness is sitting on every wall. For many weeks after they took Ngozi away, the compound felt empty. Nobody said it out loud, but we all missed her. Even Aisha, who once complained about her crying, began to speak softly whenever her name came up. It was as if the whole compound had lost something it didn't know it cared about. Sometimes at night, I still found myself listening for that sound, the soft sobbing that used to come from her room. But the nights were silent now. Only the sound of frogs and faraway traffic filled the air. I told myself it was better this way, that peace had returned. Yet that silence carried a strange sadness too. One afternoon, about 3 months later, I was sitting outside peeling groundnuts when I saw a familiar figure walking through the gate. I squinted. My heart jumped. It was her, Ngozi. She looked different, thinner but calmer. She wasn't wearing the same heavy scarf anymore. Her face was open, her eyes clearer, though there was still a shadow of pain hiding somewhere inside them. She greeted me with a small smile. "Good afternoon, Mama Kemi." I stood up quickly. "Ngozi, my daughter!" I hugged her. She hugged me back, gentle and quiet. She told me she had been in a hospital for people dealing with mind sickness. They gave her medicine, and she spoke to doctors every day. She said she now understood what happened to her, that her brain refused to let go of her baby. "But I'm better now," she said softly. "I still remember them every day, but I don't see them anymore." She went back to her old room. It had been locked since the day she left. I gave her the key. When she opened it, the smell of dust came out. She cleaned everywhere slowly, humming small hymns. No more baby blanket, no more photo on the table. She had moved them to the hospital, she said, so she wouldn't hold on to ghosts. That evening, the compound children were playing outside. Little Femi from room 3 ran up to her with a football and laughed. To my surprise, Ngozi laughed too. A real laugh, light and free. She joined them for a few minutes, helping them tie their shoelaces. For the first time, I saw peace sitting on her face. When night came, the compound was quiet again, but this time, it was a peaceful quiet, not the heavy one that comes from sadness. I sat by my window, looking at her light still on. I could hear her faintly praying, thanking God for strength. Before I went to sleep, I passed by her door to check if she was fine. She had fallen asleep with a small phone beside her. From it, I heard a soft sound playing, a baby's laughter. It wasn't real, just a recording. She must have saved it long ago. I smiled sadly and whispered, "Rest now, my daughter." That night, for the first time since she moved in, the crying stopped and peace finally returned to the compound.